The FBI is currently investigating a Democratic state senator from Hartford in connection with the way American Rescue Plan money was given out in the form of grants. An investigation by the Connecticut Mirror found millions and millions of dollars flowed out of that fund to more than 100 projects in cities and towns with very little oversight. State Representative Tammy Nuccio joins me now to discuss why this happened. The Republican from Tolland is a ranking member on the Appropriations Committee. Welcome back. Good to see you once again on Face the Facts.
Nice to see you again.
So, according to Connecticut Mirror's Mark Pasniok's great reporting, there's line items in this budget that were called various grants. There was another one that was called other expenses. This sounds awfully vague for millions of dollars. Is this something that's common when federal money flows into the state, or is this different than what happened in the past?
Well, I would challenge your millions of dollars and say, you know, when I was debating it on the floor, it's hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's a lot.
And I told Mark jokingly, if he can get a list of what's in the various grants, he should send it to me because I can't get it. You know, so
how is that possible? You're a lawmaker on appropriations.
I'm the ranking member on appropriations, and I can't get it. You know, I think that in the articles that have come out, it's been pretty clear. You know, whether it's listening to the Speaker Ritter, or you know Senator Austin, or any of those. I wish I could tell you how it got done. I want to say I've asked every single year that I have been there, how do you get on this list? You know, what are these various grants and that? And it's always the same story. It's, well, you know, depends on which legislator is asking, AKA, you know, which side of the aisle you're on.
Right.
You know, the Speaker went so far as to say, well, you know, we look at a lot of different things, including whether or not somebody's struggling in their district.
Right.
So, you know, in my opinion, does that make this an extension of the Citizens Elections Plan? We're all supposed to be on even footing.
Right.
But if there's a legislator who's having a hard time in a district, we give them money to what?
How can that be changed? It seems like it's very vague and intentionally vague, obviously. Yeah. Do we change a law in Connecticut, our Constitution? How, because it's money coming from the federal government to here. So how do you tackle something like that if the goal is more transparency?
I think there has to be more process around this, right? It's so loose. There's no transparency. There's no vetting. There's no return on investment. There's no.
So if I hand a nonprofit, and in Mark's reporting, he said, look, a lot of legitimate nonprofits got money. They do great work in the community, and so, but there are some concerns about how opaque all this is. Yeah. If I'm a person who says, hey, I need $1 million, you just go ask somebody. You go ask
a legislator who's in power. You know, you go ask somebody, you know, to argue your case for you. So to me, it's. There's no vetting. There's no process. There's no, like, let's give everybody on a list, let's look at it. You know, I'm an accountant. I'm like, how are they spending their money? Is it for administrative services? Because then why am I giving you money to pay for your highest level staff? Why am I not getting money to programs, right? So that we have to change this. There has to be transparency. There should never be something in the budget that says various this with a $30 million price tag on it, or other this, or, you know, across the board, I think we just need to have more accountability.
Is that a constitutional change, do you think? How does legally that happen, do you know?
I think it's just a process change. I mean, we could put it in law. I would love to see it in law. I'd help write the law. You know, if we could do that, that would be great. If not, if nothing else, procedurally, there should be a process that these people all have to go through, and then grants get evaluated, and it goes to the most needy organization.
Is this so loose that if I owned a restaurant and said, look, I want to put it in outdoor dining, or I want to get a new CNC router for my shop. Is that possible? Is it that loose? It is.
Yes. Look at, I challenge people to go and look at the list of who was on there for ARPA funding, or even just in our regular general budget funding, and say, how did they get there? Who asked for it? And how are we following up to make sure that there was so much money that people had asked for that didn't get spent? We had to go back and reallocate because, you know, there were no websites. There was no validation that this company's even existed. If somebody asked for it, and we gave them money.
And then what do they do with the money afterwards? Okay, you brought up Speaker Ritter. We have a quote. As someone who represents Hartford, and reading what I'm reading, I'm the first one to say mechanisms could be better. Understatement. Ritter said there needs to be more checks and balances in place. No question about that. So you have some agreement on his side of the aisle, and you obviously believe this. What's step one, do you think?
I think we have to put, you know, it can't be any more which legislators in power, you know, which side, like, who needs the money. I think we need to really, like you said.
Could there be a commission to say, look, this is how it's spent?
Committee, a board, you know, policy. You have to apply for it. You have to show what you're going to use it for. You have to open your books. to say, you know, this is why I need this money. Here's the program who am I going to help? You know, and it can't be 5 people, right? It has to be evaluated and looked at the best use of taxpayer dollars. You know, we need to have more transparency, and it can't be, you know, certain legislators who are doing bad in certain areas, or they know who to ask, and then they get money for it.
When you bring this up to the other side of the aisle, what kind of response do you get?
Well, you can go back and watch my debates on that, because I brought it up every year. You know,
Okay.
how do I get on this list?
Yeah.
You know, how does my town get on this list? And it literally comes down to, well, you know, people ask certain legislators, you know, Kathy Austin's quote was, you know, I get a list from my leadership. They tell me who to put on there, and I do.
So at this point, it has to be leadership handing down the list, and if you're not in leadership, you don't get the list.
Well, and where's the leadership been for the last 50 years in this state? You know, I challenge you to go through and see which side of the aisle a lot of this money falls on.
We've got to leave it there, Representative Nuccio. We appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.